Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rumors versus Facts, the Georgia recruiting show that during the season actually turns into a Georgia football active season show and with a little less emphasis on recruiting. Although this weekend, we got to touch on recruiting, Jed, because this is a monster weekend with the number 10 Texas Longhorns coming into Athens, Georgia to face the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs. The list you put up of the guys that are going to be in town is pretty damn impressive. And this has got, if I don't want to say if Georgia wins, it'll move the needle because we've seen Georgia lose a game, not very many in Sanford Stadium, but we've seen Georgia struggle or something like that. And the Georgia coaches say, look, we wouldn't have struggled on the at tight end or O line or D line or running back or wherever if we had you. And so it works out. Plus, the kids have a great time when they come to visit. So, kind of give people a quick overall, if you will, of what this weekend means for Georgia from a recruiting standpoint before we get into the matchup with Texas.
Yeah, it's huge. It's weird because these game day weekends have almost become more about really setting yourself up with guys for the next class, like the guys who are currently juniors, the class of 2027. And there's a ton of those guys at pretty much every position. Running back, there's a bunch of receivers, offensive line, defensive line, whatever. 5-star David Jacobs is one at edge. Running back Kamon Spell, who's I think the number one running back in either the industry rankings or just the rivals rankings, who recently decommitted from Penn State. 28, there's some top guys there, headlined by Jaden Wade, who's the number one player in the country, quarterback, who is committing on Sunday, which is a good sign. But even in 26, there's offensive lineman Tyreek Jemison, who Georgia's been after. Penn State commit, linebacker commit Elijah Littlejohn's going to be back. So yeah, it's multiple classes, it's multiple positions, and like you said, it's the environment's always great. The kids say the food's great. And you can spin it either way. You can say, hey, we beat Texas, we're still on top, or you could say, hey, we lost to Texas, but if we had you, we wouldn't have. So it can go either way, but these recruiting weekends are always huge. I mean, this is the first home game in almost a month. So a big opportunity to get a lot of these guys back on campus.
So you're basically saying Georgia's going to get 10 commitments out of this weekend.
Right. The over-under is set at, I think, 9.5. So get your sports book of choice. But no, I mean, I think there's a couple that could come out of this weekend in the near future. And I think this is one of those ones where you're going to look back at it next summer or next high school season, whatever, and be like, yeah, there was a ton of guys who were at this game who ended up being on Georgia's commit list in one class or another.
Yeah, we've had that in the past. I can't remember the game, whatever game it was last year, or it might have been the year before, but the visitors list was ridiculous. And then by Wednesday, we had people complaining there weren't any commits. And then by the end of the cycle, every kid would talk about that particular game. Like, yeah, when I was there for Georgia versus Ole Miss or whoever, that game was nuts, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a Georgia Bulldog. Or you get silent commits that don't pop until later. So don't let if guys haven't committed by Sunday or Monday, and then heck, sometimes if a guy does commit immediately, you got to be a little wary because I'm thinking of a certain running back who came to Athens, he committed to Georgia, and then his mom's like, no, he's not committed. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Miss Cooper. Sorry about that, and then things change. But huge weekend coming up. We'll have a ton of updates. And if you're not a member of UGA Sports, you got to sign up. It's $1 for your first week. If you want to cancel by the end of the week, that's fine. But just try and see what it's like to find out what these kids really say after they come for a big week like this. You mentioned that Georgia hasn't been at home for basically a month. You actually went to Starkville. How was it?
Stark, a lot less cold. Like for those who want a glimpse into our life. So we went 3 years ago, and everybody remembers how cold it was. The press box is open there, like you're exposed to the elements just like the fans are. So that game sucked from a reporting standpoint. But it was beautiful weather. You can enjoy the experience there because everybody said again, it's Starkville, it's the Cowbells. Like it's a very traditional SEC experience, and it's cool to kind of soak that in without worrying if your rear end's going to be frozen to the seat when you try to go down for interviews. So, yeah, cool environment. Press box was cool, and it was a game that was one that we haven't seen a lot. It was one where Georgia really kind of controlled it, not necessarily from the jump, but probably for the final 3 quarters. I would say that was a game where Georgia was in full control. I hadn't seen a lot of those, but it took you back to those 21 and 22 teams a little bit, for sure.
How, in your opinion, how much carryover do we see from this past week to the upcoming week? Because I was very, very concerned about how Georgia will play against Mississippi State because everyone, again, I said it was a no-win situation. You beat Mississippi State. Well, you beat Mississippi State. They just won their first SEC game. But if you lose to them, then it's like you lost to a team that just won their first SEC game.
Mhm.
And even if it's closer, like how could you screw that up? And Georgia looked like what a typical Georgia Mississippi State game should look like. But I'm going to be just as nervous, Jed, about Georgia facing this Texas team because of you saw how Mississippi State looked on that first drive, as you mentioned. They were lights out to start with, and then they started making some mistakes, and then Georgia played really well. Georgia played its most complete game, playing, having fun as they did the big video with all the parents and the little league coaches coming on, telling these guys just go out and have fun. And Nate Frazier looks like he's having fun, like he's they're having a blast. But Texas is different. Texas leads the team, at least the SEC, in sacks, tied with Texas A&M. This is a team that is the hardest team to run on in the conference. This is a team that has a good quarterback and great wide receivers, where Georgia can't really stop a lot of passes. So, forgive me if I'm a little, Larry Munson-esque on this rollover, but I just had a long conversation with a good friend of mine. He's like, look, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I'm not going to pick us to win by 7 or 14 points, but we'll be fine. And I'm like, I want to believe, because I really believe in this offense, Chad, but I'm worried about the defense. And so how much do you think this was it just that you were playing Mississippi State, that the kids were motivated, or have they really turned the page and now you have that kind of confidence that you should have had in 2021, 2022, where you're just like, yeah, these guys we're on to something here?
Yeah, I mean, defensively first, I think they have played better the last couple of weeks. It was funny. Kirby after the game was like, "Yeah, I've just reached the point where I've just accepted we're going to give up a touchdown on the opening drive," which is how it felt watching it. You're like, "Yeah, okay, let's hurry Mississippi State up and score so Georgia can get the ball, and then the real game can start."
It's almost like we're going to spot you 7.
Yeah, exactly.
When you would play pickup basketball against like older kids, they're like, okay, we're first one to 11 wins. We're going to spot you 4.
Yeah. But after that, I mean, it does seem like the pass rush has been a little better. They got a couple sacks against Mississippi State. Both, when I rewatched the game, were the same blitz where they blitzed one linebacker and then blitzed the other guy. I think it was CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson both times. Blitzed them kind of one following the other, and the running back
dog blitz, baby.
The
yes,
other
sir.
one gets the sack. So that worked out good. And we saw some of that against Auburn too, where it's not as much you're going to leave a guy one-on-one to go beat somebody. It's you're going to scheme some stuff up. Now, Gabe Harris did immediately beat his man off the snap and crushed Blake Shapen from the blind side on that one play. So I feel like the pass rush has been a little better. I feel like the run defenses has continued to be strong. And I think we talked about this defense, like against Ole Miss, when they're playing a lot of cushion and they're playing zone. It's a defense that is waiting for you to make a mistake, but the defense doesn't force you into a lot of mistakes, which then allows these long touchdown drives. Georgia got some sacks. They forced the fumble from Contavious Johnson. They got some penalties called on Mississippi State. So, and that's not necessarily you forcing anything, but it helps, right? So you got to force those things. And I think Texas, Brent sent that great tweet he had. Let me find it, from a few weeks ago, November 3rd, which I believe is after the last game Texas played. Basically, since the Oklahoma game, the last 4 games, Texas's passing offense has been getting the ball out quick and getting it out short, like passes close to the line of scrimmage, and a lot of the yardage is run after the catch. And I think Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, first play of the game for Texas is a one of these dreaded screens right to the outside, and a receiver takes it 75 yards. So if you're Georgia, you're thinking, okay, if we can come up and tackle and tackle well at home, then you feel like you should be all right. But there have been times where the tackling, I think, like you've said a couple weeks ago, the tackling this year as a whole has been better than last year, I think. But there have been times where it slacked off for a couple drives and Texas can make you pay. So I think this defense is playing better. I think they're playing more confident. But I've still got to see it. That was as close to a complete game as we've seen, but it'll take probably at least that, if not more, to contain Texas on Saturday night.
Good news is, and this is I don't say breaking news, but this is something I was told right before we went to air. And I apologize for going to air in the wrong show. I started our watch along show for Georgia versus Texas instead of our recruiting show. So Jed was right. I was wrong. I'm a moron. But I was actually looking at my phone when I went live, which was dumb on my part. So we'll have to rebrand the shows here in a bit. The person told me, said what he heard from practice was that DeMello Jones was full go, fully participating. Now, we had an update earlier that from Kirby Smart on the Wednesday teleconference saying that Lawson Lucky, who had and I don't care what you've heard, the dude had a concussion. I mean, he got walloped. I mean, he wasn't moving there for a minute, so he got his bell rung. I mean, the thing I heard was that he didn't remember making the catch, and I'm like, okay, maybe true or not, the guy got hit. He got hit pretty hard. And I mean, hey, it's a rough game. He knows what he's getting out, what he's getting into, and I mean, Gabe Harris, it's Blake Shapen. Shapen's out.
Mm-hmm.
His shoulder pads are off. Georgia's one play away from that happening to Gunnar Stockton. I mean, it's a dangerous football game. But we understand that Kirby Smart said that DeMello Jones and Lawson Lucky, two of your starters, were practicing this week. But what does that mean? Because a lot of times they can be practicing by themselves or they're non-contact, but they're on the field. I was told that DeMello Jones was practicing with the team, full go, full participation. None of this. He's running on the sidelines or he's running in straight lines like that. And he dressed out with the team last week, and you mentioned that he had a brace on his elbow or something. But if you can get DeMello Jones out there, that's big. They played Ellis Robinson some. Ellis Robinson is getting better. They played Daniel Harris. Daniel Harris is still not great. You're still missing Kyron Jones. You're trying to make do with Ja'Cory Thomas and Zion Branch. In other words, the secondary is questionable, but a sure tackler like DeMello Jones, getting him back is big. And I'm with you. If they want to throw against zone, sure. Georgia usually doesn't miss tackles. Sometimes they do. But I like Georgia's chances on a short throw and tackle much better than I do. I mean, you saw the Florida game. They get behind you.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in multiple times. You all of a sudden you look up and you have a corner and a safety both pointing to each other, trying to figure out who had a deep fourth of the field. And that's something that I'm thinking if I'm Arch Manning, who's been talking to Ty Simpson, by the way, who beat Georgia. It's like, hey, here's how to attack them. So anyway, just pointing out some good news for Georgia secondary, getting DeMello Jones back fully healthy should be a good way. But this is the team that's going to attack you through the air because, Jed, if I'm not mistaken, this is not a very strong Texas run team.
Yeah, no, they are not good at running the ball. And I think if you're Texas, you could be like, well, it doesn't matter if Georgia's run defense is good because we can't run the ball anyway. So, like, it's not like now. And then, like, on the one hand, you think, okay, if you're a defense, right, what do you always want to do is make an offense one-dimensional and then go from there. So I think it was somebody on the board say Alabama essentially got to be one-dimensional, couldn't run the ball at all, and did enough offensively to win that game. So I think with the short passes, I think two things would worry me if I was Kirby Smart. One, if your defensive backs are keying on short passes, what does that open you up to? Double moves. We've seen Georgia run it a couple times where London Humphreys fakes blocking for a screen and gets open down the sideline. And then just a guy like Steve Sarkisian has been around long enough. He knows enough offensive football to be able to attack you where you're weakest. And I think if you're Georgia right now in coverage, anyway, it's Star and your second safety opposite KJ Bolden. So what will he draw up to attack that? And how does Georgia counter it? You know, we've kind of floated all year. Maybe eventually DeMello Jones gets some playing time at Star. Does that happen this week? Maybe. I don't know. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's a chess match between two guys who we all know they're friends. They've known each other for a long time. They're probably, they're two of the coaching faces of this league at this point with the programs they're at and the success they've had. So it's going to be a good one. I think, it's the defense has got to keep doing what they're doing. They got to keep the pass rush going a little bit, which is something that Texas's offensive line I know has not held up great all year in pass protection, especially on the road. And continue just playing well enough on the back end. Now, this isn't a 21 secondary or 22. We know that. But just doing well enough and tackling well enough to give your offense a chance to score, which I think, even though Texas's defense is good, I think this offense is playing well enough to still score some points.
Yeah, I'm very, very gung-ho on Georgia's offense. And I'll tell you why. Who's Georgia's best running back?
I mean, after last week, you could make an argument for either one, Frazier or Bones.
Again, that good problem to have, right? I mean,
yeah.
If I told you, hey, Georgia's going to war tomorrow with Nate Frazier, you're like, okay. I said, hey, Nate Frazier's out. You're playing Chauncey Bowens the whole game. You'd be like, okay. There's no fear there. It's like, hey, you got them both, and you got Josh McCray, and you've got Peanut. You can give a toss sweep to Dylan Bell or London Humphreys too. Okay. And then if you remember, I guess it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I've mentioned it multiple times on the show. Georgia went to the tight ends 9 times and only completed 3 of them. Then all of a sudden you have Lawson Lucky get 3 touchdowns in a game.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw them last week. And that's not just Lawson Lucky and Oscar Delp. Oscar Delp gets his first touchdown, but Oscar Delp, who early in the season, I said on here, you had average tight ends, good tight ends. You had good SEC tight ends, not elite, not liabilities, good tight ends, serviceable, do your job, but not always hitting, but not screwing up a whole lot. The last few weeks, the tight ends have been killers, absolute destroyers, setting the edge, getting guys into space. I mean, just go back to the Florida game. Who's out there leading the way for Gunnar Stockton? Oscar Delp, his roommate. They both take a knee at the same spot. It's poetry in motion. Oscar Delp is running people into the stands. He's catching touchdowns. Lawson Lucky, we know, scores. He's crushing people. Then you bring in Elias Williams. I was on Sirius radio with Peter Burns and Chris Doring, and they've got this entire game to talk about. And like the second or third question was about Elias Williams. Who's number 10? Look at that guy. I'm like, yeah, he's badass. So give me this tight end group who's absolutely now playing above average. These guys are starting to play elite level SEC football. They've come on. Your offensive line, which we talked about, 6 different formations or 6 different configurations in 6 weeks, now looks great. The guy that you had start as a true freshman, Juan Gaston, is a backup now because Dontrell Glover's came and taken that guard spot. But when you need to, you can bring in Juan Gaston. And you see these guys, the pulls, the counters, when they run power, my God, it's just.
That was what stuck out to me because all those runs, the long chunk runs Nate Frazier had, every single one of them was to the right side with guys pulling, guys kicking out. Like every run looked the exact same. And I think that this offensive line is continuing to get better and better. And everybody loves to hate on Stacey Searles, and that's, we could do a whole show about Georgia coaches that everybody loves to hate. But you look at what this offensive line has done. I mean, you've started 2 true freshmen a lot. You've got a first-year starter at center, in Drew Bobo, and you have not just done enough to win, you have an offensive line that is playing really, really well. Like that is dominating people.
Yeah.
With two true freshmen, you got a guy in Ernest Green who I'm sure is not 100%. Like back stuff is tough, especially for a guy that big. He's playing great. Monroe Freeling had the great. He got out and got the block on Zachariah Branch's touchdown for halftime the other day, and Micah Morris just quietly does his thing and buries people. So this line is playing really great, and the skill players. Like I feel like it's been a long time since Georgia's had a guy like Zachariah Branch, where like every third down that's thrown, every whatever, you're like, oh, that had to be Zach Branch, right? It had to be. Like he's getting 7, 8, 9 catches every game, and it's like, and yeah, like if you ask Kirby Smart, he'll say, oh yeah, well some of those are actually runs, like that's extension of the run game, and those whatever, call it whatever you want. He's getting 8, 9 catches a game, and it's
Touches, like you
such
said.
a lethal weapon with the ball in his hands that you have to. Like everybody says, oh, screens are stupid, whatever. Well, what do every offensive coordinator that's ever been hired in their first press conference? We want to get our playmakers the ball in space with a chance to make plays. That's what that is. He is by far your best playmaker with the ball in his hands, and those are ways to do it. And he scored. I mean, Roddy, how many touchdowns on quick flips to the outside? The one the other day, the Tennessee one, or two, just off the top of my head, and he's created several big plays off of those. That's what it does, and I think this offense, like we thought at the beginning of the year that it could, it is continuing to get better and better and better and better with every week. It feels like.
Well, let me go back to like with the screen issue. Uh, in the first part of this year, when you had Ernest Green banged up, you had Monroe Freeling get banged up. You saw Micah Morris get gimpy. You lost Juan Gaston for a while there. You were changing things around. You didn't have a lot of faith that your offensive line could hold up for a 7-step drop, a show pass, 3rd and 8. He's going to drop back and watch the development of the routes and go through his progression and hit somebody. So you threw a screen and they were effective. Now once you have time, you're like, well, okay, we could do something different. But if you point it out, it's tough to get a deep downfield pass to a small guy like that. And what we saw in the Florida game, when they would throw screens to him, they threw some screens to him out there by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like, okay, it's him versus somebody else with a two-way go. A lot of space. But you really want to set up a block because he can play off a block so much better. And that's why they throw screens. And they they went back to that last week, and he's bubble screens and stuff like that. He's just absolutely killing it because he's got one blocker out there. And also, it makes it a little tougher to know exactly what's going on if there's 2 people out there. So I got nothing wrong with the screens. I love, like you said, getting the ball in space. If you can get him a blocker, even better.
Mm-hmm.
But so your wide receivers, and I'm scared to jinx them. But we know what happened last year with the wide receivers. We haven't seen too much of that this year. Noah Thomas came up big last week. I made fun of how many times he looked behind him on his run,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't get caught. And he zigzagged and made it 64 yards. But I was laughing because it was like 11 times, dude. You should go back and watch the film.
Yeah, he cannot believe he had that much open space and nobody caught him. But like that's another, like that play one, that's a play that Georgia stole from Alabama. That's the play Alabama got the last first down on that. I guess it was 3rd down. Georgia ran it early against Auburn and then got 10, 15 yards in Nate Frazier. This time they run the same thing. The running back's covered, and that's another step for Gunnar Stockton. He doesn't force it. He doesn't run it. He doesn't throw it away. He goes back to his 2nd or 3rd read, and Noah Thomas is there all by himself. And that's just, it's another every single week it's getting better. And that's what you want, right? I mean, you want to be playing your best football by the time you get to SEC championship, maybe the playoffs, whatever. And this Georgia offense really seems like it's doing that. I mean, let's just for argument's sake say they beat Texas, let's say 31-24. Okay, beat Charlotte, and then Georgia Tech's defense just gave up 46 or whatever to NC State last week. If you have another good offensive performance against NC State, even if you don't make the SEC championship, what defense is going to want to play that Georgia offense in the playoff? I mean, they're putting up points and just very efficient. They're not putting the ball at risk. They're not. They're converting third downs at a good rate. Like every metric, they're just getting better and better every week. And looking ahead to the end of the season, that's a good sign.
Yeah. It feels weird for us because we've covered under Kirby Smart so many good defenses,
Mm-hmm.
and the questions have always been on the offense. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and I don't think we know how to deal with it. I know the fans don't because we talked to them on the board. It feels weird because I guess almost feels like Pac-12 football or the Big Ten when you'd have 45, 48 games. And it's nerve-wracking because you feel like you have to hit on every play. And you'll watch Georgia get down to the into the red zone, and then all of a sudden it's first and goal from the 6, and you have people saying, okay, don't get cute, Bobo. Just hand it to Josh McCurry 3 times, see if you can knock it in. And then they run something and it doesn't quite work, and people start losing their mind because it feels like you have to hit every time because you needed to against Ole Miss. You scored on every possession, and you needed every one of them. And when you had a few, you shot yourself in the foot a few times against Florida, you're trailing in the fourth quarter. So it's not comfortable knowing that you have to win shootouts or stuff like that, but you got to be getting more comfortable, as you say, as the season's progressing. Because remember, the first 2 weeks, there were so many questions about Gunnar Stockton. Now you're pointing out how, he's playing so much better. And then he's got more time. And also when the play's getting, I don't want to say the play's getting old, but you got 1 second, 2 second, 3 seconds, and you know that your pocket is breaking down. It felt like after 1 or 2 seconds, first couple of weeks, he's going to tuck and run. Now he's looking downfield. And in the past few weeks, we've seen the great pump fakes. Like you said, everybody's watching number 1. Let's keep an eye on Zach Branch. And when Gunnar pump fakes that way and everybody bites, and it leaves a guy standing wide open in the end zone, he's wearing maybe a 16 jersey or an 86. And it feels like they're also finally getting comfortable. I don't say finally getting comfortable, but it feels like they're playing a little bit more to Dylan Bell's skill set. He is that Jalen Walker, that kind of Swiss Army knife, that WD-40, 1001 uses, that you can just use him in any way, shape, or form. So you've got a strong wide receiver. And remember, you lost Colby Young. That's huge loss. But you've got great backs, really good wide receivers, and offensive line that's killing people. Your quarterback plays. He's on Heisman list now. Gunnar Stockton is. Now he's not at the top. He doesn't put up gaudy numbers. But you mentioned earlier protecting the ball. And again, I don't want to jinx him, but he's only had a couple interceptions, and one was a tip. That kid's he's playing really well, and I think this game is going to come down to which quarterback makes the fewest mistakes. I thought you had a great piece today comparing the two quarterbacks. They have eerily similar numbers, but Georgia strengthened its offense, and it's going against the strength of Texas, which is Texas's defense. So it's going to be a lot on Gunnar. You're going to have to throw to win. It's going to be a lot tougher to run. Arch Manning is facing Georgia's weakness. It's secondary. He's going to have to be on. So I can't imagine the pressure on both these guys because, they both have to hit. And I don't know. I've got a lot of faith in Georgia's offense. Don't have as much in the defense, but you did point out, they got 3 sacks last week, which they're still dead last, but 3 sacks is good. Getting to the quarterback's good. And you're seeing that flash from Gabe Harris when he takes out a QB. Quintavious Johnson forces a fumble. And you remember there's been at least 2 games where he had 2 big plays in the same series. And we're like, there's those flashes. And then other times he gets pushed inside. There's nobody to the outside. It's a big pickup. And you're like, what the hell, Quintavious? Set the edge, But he's, again, both of those guys, first-year players. Gunnar Stockton, first-year player. A lot of those offensive linemen, first-year players. And you said after the first, we did this after Marshall or Austin P, you predicted this team's going to get better as it goes. And I said, hold your horses. That's what we said last year, and it didn't happen. And I'll give credit where it's due. You were right. And my hesitation always just comes from uh, what we see in that first drive every week. That first drive is like, and we've seen it where it can't happen. You saw Ole Miss score 5 times in a row. We saw Alabama last year do what they did. You saw Aguilar's 14 completions in a row. We know what's in there, and it feels like Georgia's playing with fire by having these guys come in and look like Heisman winners against that Georgia defense. And I'm sure Arch Manning's going to look like a damn genius when he comes in here and starts picking Georgia apart. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing from this offense. And I guess this is how Ohio State felt a couple years ago. It's like, all right, nobody can touch our offense. We're fine. Hopefully our defense does well, but our offense is badass. All right?
Yeah, well, and we've said the past few weeks, like, this defense doesn't have to automatically just snap its fingers and be back to 2021. You just need to get a little bit better. And I think that's what we're seeing. Again, like you said, are they getting 7-8 sacks a game? No. But a couple with how your offense is playing goes a long way. A turnover here or there. You don't have to get 4 a game, but here and there is huge for an offense that's playing the way it's playing. And you've seen from the corners, and corners been playing better. I think the safeties, I think Ja'Cory Thomas has held up all right for what it is. And
very good against the run.
And the linebackers, I mean, CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson continue to play at a very high level. And then those guys have, I don't want to say been inconsistent, but like I mentioned the tackling earlier, like they've had times where they haven't had their best games, but they have been playing out of their minds the past few weeks. And you're going to need that against Texas. Like, I think Texas is, you're going to see some quarterback run because they're going to need to do that. They're going to need to figure out how to do something on the ground. And they'll have to come up big in the pass game. You can't just come flying up on these run fakes and leave wide open lanes. But yeah, I think this defense is starting to, again, they're not shutting anybody out anytime soon. I don't think. Of course, that could mean Georgia wins 50-0 on Saturday, but they're getting better and they're gaining more confidence. And I think that could be enough to get to play just well enough to keep getting better every week and just let this offense do what it's been doing more and more as the year goes along, which is put up a lot of points.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to mention Jeff Dyer, a friend of the show, says Jaden Riddell's lurking too. Heard a lot of good things about him. We got to see it actually threw to him, which I was happy to see. That's a guy, if they do complete a pass to him, watch what happens after he catches it. I think Ethan Barbour and the speed that he has, that's going to be fun too. And Henry Dion, is that Raquel? So I think Mississippi State was a turning point for this team. We're about to boat race Texas and everyone else. Henry, I don't think Mississippi State was. You know what I think this team changed? Was the Ole Miss game. When that offense scored every time. And yeah, the defense, as we pointed out that they had 5 straight touchdown drives. Just abysmal. But sometimes you change after that because you're like, hey, look, this is as low as we can get. This is god awful. And they came out and fought, and then they played better. So I'm with you there, Henry. The confidence in this Mississippi State game, and maybe we say they changed it. Maybe all of us now have a lot more confidence in them because they finally did what they were supposed to. I guess the Kentucky game, they did what they were supposed to too, but this was the you've trailed in 6 out of 7 games, SEC games. You've won all but one of them, so I'm with you there. And here's something. You're an old soul, and you can be as sarcastic and ornery as anybody, but when Kirby started talking in the spring and then in the fall about fire, passion, and energy, you can't tell me that some part of your snarky little soul didn't roll your eyes. Oh, yeah. Like this is the coachiest of coach speak ever. but this team does play with it. They do prioritize it. It shows when Kirby comes out and says they're hard to kill. He's not just, he knows that's going to be taken out of context. He knows it's bulletin board material. The man who works tirelessly to try to maintain the image of the program and not to give anybody any sort of bulletin board material comes out and says, hey, we're hard to kill. He knows that's going to be everywhere. But I think his whole idea of if we can find the guys to play with passion, and that's what they did this past Saturday, all across the board, offense and defense. They were playing like guys who, like they did in Little League. Find the guys with energy, no loafing. And you watch third quarter, fourth quarter, they're still 7, 8 hats around the ball carrier. And like you pointed out, when on those big runs, there are guys, and I looked at some of the film there, you had linemen making blocks 13, 14 yards down the field. Second level, not only picking up a linebacker, but going and picking up a safety. You mentioned, Monroe Freeling down there. You saw Micah Morris. You saw Oscar Delp, just taking guys to the woodshed. So I don't want to come across as being like, oh, yeah, rah, fire, passion, energy. But I'll just admit it sounded almost like a Tony Robbins motivational type speech thing. It sounded corporate. We're looking for sales associates with fire, passion, energy. But he was not lying. And there were times last year where you would see certain starters who felt like they were going through the motions. And I don't see that on this team. I don't even see it on special teams. Like they're trying to get out there and kill somebody on special teams. Now, they may lose. Hell, they can lose 2 of the next 3 games. But it won't be because they weren't energetic enough or fired up enough.
Yeah, no, there's something to it, and I think it was time for because it was 21 where we started hearing about the skull sessions and learning everybody's why, and that helped lead to 2 titles. And that's a part of the program still, I'm sure, but I think it coincided with so much new, not even necessarily new starters, but new guys in bigger roles. That you're like, yeah, we want the guys who, if 2 guys are equal, we want the guy who is going to play with more energy, with more passion. Even if even if that guy's even a little less talented, we want the guy who's playing with energy and fire and passion, because that can go a long way. And it's kind of like we talked about with Gunner earlier in the year, or even before the year started. It's like, yeah, is he? Would you build Gunner in a QB, lab or whatever? No. But does his leadership help kind of raise the level of everybody around him? It seems like it is. And I think you saw a lot of that with Stetson as well. Like they're not prototypical guys, but it's not to say they're good players, because they are, but there's something about guys wanting to play for them, with them, next to them. I mean, you saw him on Frazier's long touchdown run, or Noah Thomas's, I can't remember, one of the long ones. He materializes in the end zone right behind the guy because he's sprinting down the field to go celebrate with whoever it was that scored. So there's something about it, and I think that carries over to the whole team. I think there's guys, CJ Allen and Raylan Wilson have got the fire. Every the victory highlight videos Georgia puts out, every single one of them features a clip of CJ Allen in the middle of a huddle, like hyping up either the linebackers or the defense as a whole. Everyone, it feels like. KJ Bolden's an energetic and fiery guy. Everybody on the defensive line is, it feels like. So you got those guys kind of all over the field and in big roles. And yeah, this fire, passion, energy thing, again, it sounds like such a cliche and whatever, but there's clearly something to it. And now, do you win a national championship based solely on that? No. But does it help? Is it helping this team? I think it is.
Here's my speculation on that. This team, and I made this point with a friend of mine earlier when I was out walking. He's gung-ho about, Georgia's going to win easily. I'm like, man, Georgia has been cashing checks all year. You're that close in the Auburn game. You're that close in the Florida game. Did the ball break the plane? Did the ball touch the grass? Um, you've been playing with fire. You can't let a team score 5 straight touchdowns and expect to win it. And I said, look, eventually at some point, the ball doesn't bounce your way. So, but maybe the plays that we don't talk about, the ones that aren't litigated on Twitter or Instagram or something for 6-7 weeks at a time, it's those plays where CJ Allen goes inside out when Florida's on the goal line after a turnover, drops DJ Lagway, and they have to settle for a field goal. I mean, maybe it's Oscar Delp taking his guy, blocking him all the way out of bounds, and that freed up London Humphreys to pick up 17 yards instead of 7 yards. So, there were some guys, I won't say with bad attitudes last year, but, it almost started getting to where, because of NIL and transfer stuff like that, it almost felt like everybody, this is their job. It's not a game, it's work. And a lot of players felt that way. I remember there's a couple guys on Ray Drew's team, they hated football. They were sick of it. They've been playing it their whole lives. But it's what they had to do to move on, like we're going to go pro in this. But I mean, there's times where you're sick of your job, but I almost feel like this whole fire, passion, energy thing has turned into, I'm going to play the guys, like you said, whoever, if we're looking at 2 guys who are similar, I'm going to go with the guy who wants to be out there more, who wants to lead my team. And I think it has improved some, I won't say personalities, but the ways these guys feel about what they're doing. And also, give me the guys that want to be there. Give me you can worry about the transfer portal all you want, and let's play everybody and try to keep as many people as possible. Or I'm just going to go to war with the guys who want to buy in. I'm not going to try to make everybody happy, which I feel that that was going on some last year. I'm not going to worry about how many we're going to lose in the portal. So keep the guys that really want to be here. And you've covered recruiting. How many times have people said, give me the 3-star that's grown up wanting to be at Georgia over the 5-star who, is a mercenary? And I've always said, give me the 5-star. I can win with him. But, you can almost see the difference in a super talented quarterback like Carson Beck, versus a kid like Stetson Bennett and Gunnar Stockton, who grew up dreaming of being the University of Georgia starting quarterback. There was a play against Florida where Gunnar Stockton drops the shoulder. Now, Oscar Delp blocks the guy, but Gunnar Stockton helps and lays him out. Your quarterback throws himself into into a block. And when I rip on the defense, it's not for lack of effort. Those guys are trying, but you're limited sometimes by your physical abilities. But give me a guy on defense who's running 100 miles an hour. Now, maybe it's 100 miles an hour in the wrong way, but it's better than the guy who's trying to get his stats up or playing out of position because he thinks he can get a pick here and somebody catches the ball behind him and he runs off to the score. So I'm with you there. I think you nailed it about hey, we've got a lot of really good guys and we're trying to pick who's the best player, who can play that championship football, and the guy that's dialed in the most can do it. And I think that's what Texas might be coming to see, is a bunch of guys who are so close they can taste it. They didn't play down to Mississippi State. They know what warts they have. When Texas comes to town, I think you can see an offense that's like, we got to score, and a defense is like, look, we just got to stop them once or twice. It's just 1 or 2 stops here. And here's the thing. Texas is great at getting turnovers. They're near the top in the league. Georgia's bad at it. But Texas also has a lot of penalties. Maybe the most penalized team in the SEC, or at least near the top. If Georgia doesn't shoot themselves in the foot, I think you can almost count on Texas to put themselves behind the chains. Thoughts?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's what this is. Because again, I the thing with the pass rush is, like, there have been times where I think the defensive staff thinks, okay, we can't be too aggressive rushing this guy because what if he scrambles and makes a big play? That's part of the reason why Georgia was successful in rushing Quinn Ewers last year, I feel like, is because he wasn't much of a threat to run, to scramble. So But that's what this defense has done the past couple weeks is create mistakes. I mean, again, the zone defense, the playing off of guys, you're trying to wait for the offense to make a mistake, and you're not a defense that forces mistakes. We've seen some of that, and that's what you've got to keep doing against Texas, and especially in a loud environment. If you get a sack, if you get a false start, all that stuff adds up, and you get them off schedule. Like you said, the defense. I think the defense knows too. Like you said, we don't have to pitch a shutout. We don't have to get 7 turnovers and 15 sacks. Just get a couple stops. You did 2 stops a half, or even 1 stop a half.
Yeah,
and let the offense do what it's got to do, play complementary football, and go from there. But yeah, I think the defense, like I've said probably 1,000 times already, they're getting better. It's getting there. I think they're getting better. They're getting better later and at a slower pace than the offense has been. But I think you're starting to see a little bit of it as we're getting here later in the year.
I did like we got to see Zayden Walker last week.
Mm-hmm.
Elias Williams come in. Rashawn Dinkins, who we started hearing about, late July. He showed up in June before they started practice in the first day of August. I guess it was maybe the week before, a couple weeks. They're like, hey, some names to note, some guys who were, because we were always asking, who's the guy? Who's good? And that's why we told people in spring, we're like, Juan Gaston, keep an eye on him. But they start saying, Dontrell Glover. Like, wait, didn't he just get here? He's going to be good. And they're like, Rashawn Dinkins. That guy's a player. Like, Isaiah Gibson looks phenomenal. Okay. Zayden Walker looks good. Okay. But again, this was, they were just talking about physically, but you're asking who's a player, and like Cortez Smith is going to be a player. Okay. Cortez Smith, another freshman. This offensive line class could do something, but we didn't know. You're a lot of respect because the number of people who've been told who are really good turned out to be pretty mediocre. I mean, that's it's the Matt Landers effect. Just keep waiting on them to blow up, but they never quite do. Anyway, there are, like you said, the development of the defense getting a little bit better towards not as fast, but getting better. I also think that some of those guys are growing up.
Mm-hmm.
They tried the Daniel Harris thing that didn't work. They brought in Ellis Robinson. Everybody's been waiting to see him, and he's made a couple good plays. He's also given up a lot of 15-yarders, penalties. But DeMello Jones has really developed. So I'm with you there. And then we just talked about the edge guys playing better. Interior line, Josh Horton getting in there, Xavier McLeod getting in there, Oboko. I'm starting to see some guys, JJ. So I'm like, so I'm with you. I think you've talked me out of my serial depression. Maybe I'll pick Georgia to actually win this game, or maybe cover. Either way, but you're right. They have gotten better, and it's going to be a heck of a game. Real quick. Do you want to see, if you were, well, it's been in the comment section, do you want to see Georgia play in the SEC championship game, or do you think it's better for their title hopes to not play in the championship game, SEC championship?
I mean, I'm still in the camp that conference championships are important. So, I mean, I think I get what people say, because I think that the scenario is if you don't end up in the conference championship, then you'll most likely end up as the 5 seed, which means you're hosting the group of 5 team, whether it's South Florida, Memphis, whoever, which those are good teams. That's a game Georgia should win on paper. And then you're in the same spot as you would be if you'd won the SEC championship, probably, and playing the same team. So I get it. I am one of the few people that, I guess, in all of college football that actually cares about tradition anymore. It feels like sometimes. So I say conference championships matter. If you can get there and compete for that. I mean, look at last year. Like, Georgia obviously went into and I think last year is a good example of both ways, honestly, because you can say, okay, on the one hand, Georgia won a conference title and had a banner to hang for that. On the other side, you could say, okay, if Georgia wasn't in the SEC championship, Carson Beck doesn't get hurt, and then does that matter? And it's not like that offense
And Brett Thorson
was click, yeah. And so I don't know. You can make both arguments. I'm
well,
still,
which we did. That's why I was asking what yours was.
I mean, if I was a player, I would want the chance to play for a conference championship, especially if it means you get a shot at Alabama, who obviously beat you in the regular season. But I mean, I know the way the bracket looks now, you might get to play them in the Sugar Bowl or whatever. But if I was a player or a coach, I would want to try to win a conference championship and then see where the
But
chips.
if you're a fan, what do you think's best?
I mean,
well, okay, look, I won't even put that in because now we're forcing you to try to read someone else's mind. That's not fair.
I mean, I do think the logical thing is it's one less. It's probably not playing in it because it's one less game.
Okay,
you do end up like if you don't make it, you'll end up in like an 8-9 game. Then that could be one thing. But if you're looking at being a 5 seed and like not making the SEC championship but losing to Georgia Tech, that's a different thing because then your first round matchups are all different and obviously the Tech game doesn't affect whether you make it or not. But it's one less game. It's more time to prepare. It's all that stuff. And I think the logical thing is, yeah, it helps your national championship hopes. I mean, Ohio State didn't play in it last year, I think, right? And then look how it turned out for them. But
yeah, everybody that played in everybody that won their conference lost.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just.
And again, that's not to say it would happen again this year. It's just it was a situation where you're like, hey, we won, we got to buy, we're good. Okay, well, yeah, but you did have to play that game anyway. So, personally, right. I'm fine either way. If they make it, I do worry about the injuries, but I also think you could really easily, or just as easily, do what all the other sports do and declare a SEC champion based on the year, especially if you go to 9 games. It's like, look, we're not going to play an SEC championship game. You have a regular season men's tennis champion. You have a regular season baseball champion. You have a regular season basketball champion. You can have a regular, but everybody's played their games. We had 2 different teams go 8-1. This one beat that one in a tiebreaker. Therefore, Team X is your 2026 SEC champion. We don't need to play that game. And you start all the playoffs a week earlier. So now
that's the thing is, I think, because you like the schedule now, like just totally sucks with coaches trying to move and guys trying to sign and whatever. And I think that everything has to move. And I think conference championships are going to end up like that's the logical thing to cut. Because like you said, then you end up starting the playoffs a week earlier and all that stuff. But
yeah, now without automatic buys for the conference champions, it's like now that's not even a consideration. So I'm with you there, but it is a fact it's there this year. So if Georgia makes it, great. If not, I mean,
there's a world where Georgia could get both and not make the SEC championship and get a bye. I guess if one of the teams in front of them loses in the regular season and loses a conference championship, like if Ohio State loses to Michigan again and then loses to Indiana, they're probably not getting a bye. Or if A&M loses to Texas,
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Of course, like I think if A&M loses to Texas, I think Georgia might end up going to the SEC championship anyway. But point is, like you said, that you can. There's the perfect world is not playing in your conference championship game, but also getting the bye. I think that's because then you really get a ton of time off. But then you wonder, is it too much time off? So I don't know. You can. I think you just like you said, you can win through either way. I mean, Ohio State didn't do either, and they made it all the way. The Notre Dame obviously doesn't have a conference championship game, and they played in the first round and went from there. So you can win through. It's about who's playing the best at the right time, and it's
Well, that's a question for another day. So
yeah, for sure.
Still got to get through Texas, and it all becomes moot if you lose to Texas, and could become very moot if you lose to Georgia Tech. Do you see that? And I'll end on this. See Brett McMurphy's projection where Georgia would play Georgia Tech in the
I saw.
playoffs.
I also saw one. I think this must have been last week's, where the first round game was Texas at Texas Tech, and then the winner of that game would play Texas A&M, and that would be awesome as a college football fan, as a viewer. That would be sick. But yeah, it's gonna be cool because like those the matchups last year, and all the, if I remember right, all the on campus games last year were blowouts. I think because Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Ohio State beat Tennessee, and Texas Clemson was like kind of close. So maybe we'll get some good on campus games this year. We'll see. That would certainly be nice for sure.
Yeah, get rid of these conference games and go right to games on campuses. Start a week earlier, and whoever's in the championship game, they're going to have the portal open up before they're done.
Yeah, that's the thing is like the
People
way
that want to be, and those guys that want to transfer, the need to. Who was it? The Penn State QB.
Penn State kid, yeah, who's now at Missouri and got hurt, but yeah, ended up at Missouri. And so that, again, like I said, the calendar's got to change, and I think conference championship games are the low hanging fruit on, get rid of those, start the playoffs.
The problem is they make a lot of money.
Exactly. So there's, I don't know. The calendar's got to change. We all know that.
Yeah,
whether it's
you're right,
one way or another, it's got to get figured out.
Well, speaking of calendar, we will have a story at UGA Sports tomorrow morning, basically looking at the summarizing the recruiting class, which was signing days 3 weeks away.
3 weeks from today.
Bum, bum, bum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
week of the SEC championship, where nothing else will be going on in the world.
So, okay, right now we need Georgia not to make the SEC championship so we can do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it was last year. Last year was I went down to Justice Terry's commitment Friday, went to whatever playoff game Friday night, and had the Georgia Texas game the next day. So it's a little stress, and that's the week before my wedding. So that'd be a little less stress on my life. But I'm along for the ride, no matter what.
Yeah, no, but it also would be fun for Georgia to. Love to see Georgia, Texas A&M, or like I said, Georgia, Bama in the dome or in the Mercedes-Benz. That would be fun. All right, that's all time we have for this week's show. We will see everybody next week. Y'all take care, and hopefully we'll be in the right stream this time. Sorry, Jermaine, I clicked on the wrong thing because I was on my phone about something about practice, and I'm like, where the hell's Jed? Well, Jed was in the right stream. I was in the wrong one. So, all right, folks, we'll see y'all later.